I didn't sleep the night after the fake engagement party. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Yusuf's face, the careful way he looked at me across the room, the glimmer of understanding behind his charm, and the question that never left. His eyes, why me? And honestly, I didn't know anymore. I thought I'd created him to survive a few awkward questions from Auntie Sabina. I thought he was just a convenient, imaginary patch over the gaping holes in my personal life. But then, he showed up real tall, infuriatingly calm, and became more than just a prop in my performance. He started asking real questions. And worse, he started noticing things like how I never talked about my parents, like how I flinched every time someone mentioned the future, like how I couldn't meet my cousin Zoya's eyes without something tightening in my chest. I told myself I could manage it, that I'd ride the high of our party just a little longer until it all faded away. But that morning, while I was sipping cold coffee on the balcony and scrolling through the dozens of tagged Instagram posts, my phone buzzed with a new notification. Yusuf Amir tagged you in a post. My stomach dropped. I clicked it, expecting chaos. Maybe he'd posted some ridiculous fake love caption or a photo of us that would spark questions I couldn't answer. But no, it was worse. He'd posted a photo of us from the party, one I hadn't even realized existed, where I was laughing with my eyes closed, and he was looking at me like I was something precious, like he was in love. The caption was just 3 words, real or not. And that's when the comments exploded. Zoya had commented with an emoji I couldn't decipher. My mother had liked it. Even my boss commented, didn't realize HR approved this match. I was about to throw my phone into the ocean when it buzzed again. A message from Yusuf, you need to talk to me. Now, I ignored it for 2 hours. And then he showed up at my apartment with a bag of groceries and an absurdly calm face. I brought biryani, he said. You posted that, I snapped, pointing at the screen. I needed to get your attention. He walked past me and into my kitchen. Also, you should consider changing your privacy settings. I folded my arms. What do you want, Yusuf? To know what we're doing? Because it's not just pretend anymore, is it? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the thing in my chest that's stupid, fluttering bird was back, and it was louder than ever. He set the biryani down, turned to face me. Look, I know I'm not your real fiancé, but you introduced me to your world, your family, your lies. And somewhere in all of it, I started wanting it to be real. I couldn't breathe. He took a step closer. Tell me the truth just once. Why did you really invent me? And that's when it spilled out everything. The expectations, the pressure, the way I was always the afterthought in my family. How Zoya got the promotions, the praise, the wedding invitations, and I got ... questions. Why are you still single? When are you settling down? Don't you want what Zoya has? I made you up because I wanted them to stop looking at me like I was broken. Yusuf listened, no interruptions, no judgment. And when I was done, he whispered, you're not broken, you're just done being small. I didn't cry. Not then. But I came close. He stayed for dinner. We didn't talk about the party or the post. Just life. Music, childhood memories. At some point, he started washing the dishes, and I watched him like he'd grown a second head. What? He asked. You're too good at this, I said. Fake Fiancé Training Academy. He grinned. And for a moment, I let myself believe it was real. Then came the next morning. A knock on the door, another unexpected guest. Zoya. Her eyes were sharp. Her smile sharper. Mind if I come in? Yusuf stood frozen with a mug of tea in his hand. Nice to see the engagement is still active, she said coolly. I should have led. I should have deflected. But instead, I said, Zoya, can we talk? Because it was time to tell the truth. To her, to myself. To everyone who ever made me believe I had to create a man to be enough. But I wasn't ready for what Zoya was about to say in return. She looked me in the eye and whispered, I know you made him up. I just don't know how you made him real. And that's when everything, every little lie, every performance began to unravel. I was still clutching my champagne flute like it was a weapon. Standing on the edge of the patio as conversations bubbled and laughter spilled from every corner of the backyard, the fairy lights strung above our heads flickered softly in the early evening breeze. And my cousin Lena resplendent in a sequined emerald jumpsuit was halfway into a tipsy karaoke version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. She deserved it all. The party, the spotlight, the celebratory Instagram posts, captioned with hashtag Black Excellence. Lena had just landed a senior executive position at a tech firm in DC. And as the first of our generation to break into that kind of space, the whole family was buzzing with pride. but none of them knew the quiet panic stirring in my chest. My Aunt Lena's mom had just spent 20 minutes grilling me in front of the potato salad bowl about when she could expect an engagement ring from my I'd mumbled something about long distance being hard, about his work schedule in Toronto, and how we were trying to make it work. Except there was no fiancé, there never had been. The lie started 6 months ago out of pure, suffocating social exhaustion. My ex had cheated, my parents wouldn't stop asking questions, so I invented a fiction, a new man, someone successful, someone respectful, someone who made me feel safe. His name was Elias. At first it was harmless, a few fake texts, a shadowy photo of a man from Pinterest, some vague mentions of our plans, but then Lena got promoted and wanted everyone to meet my fiancé at her celebration. So now, I stood frozen with bubbly in my hand, waiting for a ghost to walk through the garden gate. I had begged my best friend Mariah to pretend to be ill, assistant and text me updates throughout the night. She agreed, reluctantly. Her last message said, "He's almost there. You owe me Korean barbecue for the next 3 months." My heart pounded. How had it come to this? That's when I saw him. A tall figure moving through the garden entrance like a shadow cut from moonlight. Dark suit, clean lines. An expression so calm, it made the whole party feel like it paused just to witness his arrival. And in that moment, every lie I'd told became flesh. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from and if this story touches you. Make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. He walked straight toward me like he belonged to my life. No hesitation. No awkward glances. I was too stunned to move. "Hi," he said, voice rich, steady. "Sorry I'm late. Got caught up near the bridge." I blinked twice, then somehow remembered to play along. "Of course," I replied, looping my arm through his like we'd been doing this for years. From across the yard, I could feel Auntie June's eyes locking onto us like heat-seeking missiles. "Everyone's been dying to meet you," I whispered. He leaned down just enough for only me to hear. I figured that's why I'm here. I didn't dare ask who he really was. I couldn't, because in this moment, Elias had arrived, and he was perfect. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The rest of the evening blurred into surreal snapshots. Elias shook hands with Lena's dad, laughed at my dad's dry jokes, and even danced a little during the impromptu salsa set that broke out near the fire pit. It was unreal. He knew when to touch the small of my back, when to lock eyes across the yard. He played his part like a man who'd rehearsed for this his entire life. But as midnight approached and the party guests began hugging goodbye, I felt my stomach twist with dread. Who was he really, and what did he want from me? I waited until the crowd thinned before cornering him near the drinks table. "You're not just some friend of Mariah's, are you?" I asked. He didn't smile this time. "No," he said simply, "I'm not." I stepped back slightly, chilled. "Then why help me?" He looked me dead in the eyes. "Because you asked for Elias, and I needed someone to believe I could be someone else." He walked away after that, disappearing into the night like the ghost I'd summoned. And I was left standing there, wondering who had just saved me and what it had cost. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bed with makeup half smudged and heels still on, replaying the party in my mind like it was someone else's memory, something filmed in a dreamlike filter, golden and slightly blurred around the edges. My champagne flute was still half full on the nightstand, untouched. Just like the truth. Who was he? I checked my phone obsessively, but there was nothing. No new messages from Mariah. No cryptic text from an unknown number. Not even a call I could trace and question. Just silence? At 2:17 a.m., I finally broke down and texted Mariah. "Me? Where did you find him?" The typing dots appeared, then vanished. Appeared again. "Mariah, what are you talking about?" I sat upright, heart racing. "Me, Elias, your friend. The guy you sent." "Mariah, I didn't send anyone. I told you I couldn't find anyone last minute. I thought you were handling it." I stared at the screen so long, the text blurred into static. "Me. Wait, are you serious?" "Mariah, dead serious. I thought you made a new plan. I figured maybe your real Elias showed up or something." My blood turned to ice. He wasn't sent by her. He wasn't sent by anyone. I scrolled back through every message, every call, every digital breadcrumb. Nothing. No photos. No tags. Even the guests who had taken hundreds of party pictures and flooded their stories with dance clips hadn't caught him on camera. Like he'd never existed. I was still processing this when my phone buzzed again. Mariah, you okay? I didn't know how to answer because I wasn't sure what okay even meant anymore. I finally peeled off my dress around 3:30 and dropped it on the floor in a shimmer of sequins. My phone stayed clutched in my hand as I slid under the covers and stared at the ceiling. I don't remember falling asleep. I only remember the sense that someone was still watching me. Not in a terrifying way, but in a way that made me feel kept up. The next morning, I woke up to birdsong and a sense of disorientation. My phone was still in my hand, battery nearly dead. No new messages, no missed calls. Just a single notification from an app I didn't remember installing. It was an old-looking icon. No name, just a black and white silhouette of a man in a suit. Curious. I tapped it. The screen flickered, then slowly revealed a single line of text. Would you like to continue the illusion? Below it were two options. Yes. No, I stared. Rubbed my eyes, blinked. It was still there. I pressed yes. The screen went black. Then a countdown appeared. 3 days. That was it. No context, no exit button. No uninstall option, just a promise. 3 days passed. 3 days of texts I didn't send, and one voicemail I couldn't bring myself to delete. I replayed his voice again and again, the sound of him saying, because you asked for Elias. Like it had meant something to him, too. But it didn't make sense. Mariah had sworn she never sent anyone. Sworn on her favorite pair of Crocs and the life of her houseplant Rodney. I'm telling you. She said on FaceTime, twisting her curls into a pineapple while simultaneously eating dry cereal. I didn't send anyone. I thought you were joking when you said he actually showed, but someone showed, I insisted. Pacing in my kitchen like the answer might fall out of the spice rack. He knew the name. He knew everything. Girl, maybe your desperation summoned a demon. I don't know. Did you check for goat hooves, Mariah? Okay. Seriously though. You really think I wouldn't tell you if I sent a random man to play your fake fiancé? That's too juicy not to brag about. I sighed. She was right, and the more I thought about it, the more absurd it all sounded. A stranger shows up, plays the part, vanishes like a dream, so detailed it leaves behind a scent. I spent the rest of the week trying to re-enter real life. I went to work, sent emails, ate yogurt cups that tasted like nothing, but every quiet moment dragged my mind back to that night. The way his fingers fit around my champagne glass when he took it from me. The way he smiled like he knew I was afraid and wanted me not to. And then Friday morning, a letter arrived. Not a text. Not an email. An actual envelope. Cream-colored, no return address. My name written in black ink. Careful cursive. Inside was a single photograph. Me him. Laughing near the fire pit. Someone must have snapped it during the salsa dancing. My head thrown back, his arm casually slung around my shoulders. Like we'd known each other forever. Tucked behind the photo was a ticket stub from the garden. Entrance, the time stamp matched the exact minute he walked through the gate. That was it. No note, no number. Just the evidence that I hadn't imagined at all. I stared at the photo until my eyes blurred. Because now I had proof. Proof he'd existed. That he wasn't a ghost. Or maybe he was one. Just one with exceptional posture. And great cologne. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the bar alone. Not to drink, but to think. There's something about sitting alone under dim lights with a fizzy ginger beer that makes the world feel slower. More manageable. I took the photograph with me, slipping it into the pocket of my coat like a secret. The bar was mostly empty. Just a few other late 20s people trying to drink away their ambition or heartbreak. I fit right in. Until I saw the same man again. Across the room, not wearing a suit this time. Dressed down, denim shirt, dark jeans. A single leather bracelet around his wrist like a whisper of rebellion. He looked ... ordinary. Which somehow made it more haunting. He wasn't seated. He was standing by the jukebox, head tilted slightly as if reading the track list for the very first time. Like he'd never heard of Marvin Gaye or Amy Winehouse or Brandi Carlile. But still somehow knew exactly which song would hurt you best. I stood before I knew I was moving. Crossed the room like I'd done it in another life. He turned just as I reached him. You followed me? I asked. He didn't flinch. You brought the photo. I looked down at my coat pocket. I hadn't taken it out, hadn't shown a soul. How did you? I told you. I needed someone to believe. He said it with such gravity, like the sentence had been buried in him for years and only now found breath. You're not real, I whispered. You're not Elias. You're not anything. He studied my face for a long moment. I am what you needed. That's real enough. We stood there surrounded by songs neither of us selected. Do you do this often? I asked, voice thin with disbelief. Crash parties for women in need of imaginary men. No, he said. Only once. He didn't say more. Just turned back to the jukebox, tapped a button, and let a song hum to life. Ain't No Mountain High Enough. The same one Lena sang, off-key and glorious. I stepped back like I'd been slapped. He didn't even look at me again, just walked out as the chorus played, leaving me in a puddle of confusion and bass line. I never got his name. Not the real one. But I knew that I wasn't the first lie he'd worn. And maybe I wouldn't be the last. A week passed, one whole week without a single message, call, or even a mysterious bouquet of apology flowers. Not that I expected any. He didn't owe me anything. He was never mine to begin with. But still, the silence settled around my apartment. Like fog. Mariah didn't know who he was either. I had cornered her the day after the party, demanding answers. She had assumed I'd hired someone last minute or made some kind of elaborate deal with a mutual friend. She swore up and down she'd never seen him before. No, seriously, girl, she said, her tone softening when she saw how shaken I was. I thought you found him. We stared at each other, both realizing the full weight of it. A stranger had walked into my lie and played it like it was his own, and then vanished. I didn't talk about it, not to Mariah, not to my parents, not even to Lena when she texted me a grainy photo of Elias shaking hands with Uncle Rodney and captioned it, "Your man has presence." I played it cool, sent a heart emoji back. Smiled through it, deleted the picture immediately afterward, but the lie had legs now. People were asking when he was coming to the next cookout, if we were planning Thanksgiving together. Auntie June even messaged me a link to a Black-owned wedding planner. That's how I ended up inviting everyone over for a Sunday dinner to buy time to breathe, to delay the inevitable collapse of this delicate house of fiction. It would just be close family. My parents, Lena, her mom and dad, and because of course Auntie June, who hadn't missed a drama since 1992. I told them Elias would be there, and then I panicked. I had no idea what I was doing. There were only two choices: confess everything or try to summon him again. The second option wasn't really an option, not unless I wanted to risk summoning another ghost. But Friday night, as I sat staring at the half-prepped chicken in my sink and the cracked screen of my phone, a number I didn't recognize lit up the display. Unknown. Table set for 9. Or should I bring a friend? My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, then typed slowly, "Me. You're joking. Unknown. No. You needed Elias again, didn't you?" I didn't respond. I just looked at my reflection in the microwave door and whispered, "What are you?" The message read, "Unknown. Be ready by 6. Sunday came, and I dressed like I was going to war. A soft green dress, gold hoops, hair pressed and pinned with the kind of care usually reserved for birthdays and funerals. My hands trembled as I lit the last candle. The roast was in the oven. Collards simmered on low. I had even made cornbread from scratch, as if pleasing my guests might somehow ward off the unraveling truth. He arrived at 5:58 p.m. like clockwork. Same suit, same calm. No car outside. No Uber app ping. He just appeared. "You clean up nice," he said casually, handing me a bottle of red wine like we were the kind of couple who always brought something to dinner. I didn't say thank you. I didn't invite him in. I just stared. "You're not real," I whispered. "This isn't real." He glanced at the dining table, then back at me, then stopped pretending. That was the moment I realized something I had started to forget, where the lie ended and where the truth began. Dinner went off without a hitch. Lena brought wine, Auntie June brought drama wearing a bright orange shawl and declaring she could smell fertility in the air. My mom insisted on helping in the kitchen and spent the first half of the evening whispering to Elias about our childhoods. My dad gave him the stare, then nodded once like he'd decided he was acceptable. He handled it all effortlessly. When he reached for my hand beneath the table, I let him hold it. I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe that someone, even for a moment, could step into the gap where my pain had lived and fill it with something that looked like hope. But after dessert, as Lena played DJ and Auntie June started dancing in her slippers to a Luther Vandross remix, I pulled him aside. I needed answers. "Who are you?" I asked, voice low, half hoping he'd laugh and finally tell me he was an actor, or a prankster, or some social experiment I'd stumbled into. But he didn't laugh. Instead, he said, "I'm whatever you need me to be, but only until you stop needing me." I shook my head, stepping back like his words burned me. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." The next morning, he was gone again. No number, no goodbye. Just a dirty wine glass in my sink and a scent on my pillow that wasn't mine, and I was left to wonder, had I summoned him or had he found me? I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay in bed, replaying the party like a security tape. Every detail, every laugh he faked perfectly. Every time he touched my shoulder like he'd known me since college. Every glance he gave the guests that said, I belong here. Because the truth was, he did belong. That's what made it so eerie. And I still didn't know his name. By morning, my phone buzzed with a dozen texts. Auntie June, girl, where has Elias been hiding? That man fine, polite, and well-dressed. You better not let him go. Lena. Okay, but seriously, is he real? Or did you manifest him like some Pinterest boyfriend board come to life? Mom, when can we expect to meet his parents? I didn't reply to any of them. Mariah was the only one I dared to message. I kept it short. Me? Who was he? The typing bubble came and went twice before she finally answered. Mariah. I don't know. That was it. No LOL. No explanation. Just 3 words that somehow made everything worse. I spent most of Sunday pacing around my apartment like it might cough up answers if I walked hard enough on the hardwood floors. But nothing came. Just the echo of that strange final sentence. He left me with, because you asked for Elias. And I needed someone to believe I could be someone else. I opened my laptop and pulled up the guest photos Lena had already uploaded to her party album. Sure enough, there he was, smiling beside me like a dream. One arm around my waist, one drink in hand. The caption read, the happy couple, Elias is a keeper. But if you looked closely zoomed into his eyes, there was something hollow there. A stillness that didn't match the charm on his face. Like a man wearing someone else's skin. I stared at the image for a long time. Then I did what any deranged, romantic liar might do when faced with the possibility they summoned. A human ghost. I googled how to find someone who isn't real. Nothing helpful came up by Monday. I'd convinced myself I hallucinated the whole thing. Or that Mariah had found some extremely committed out-of-work actor and paid him in dumplings and beer, until I got a letter. Yes, a real paper letter. Folded in thirds and slid under my apartment door, the envelope was blank. No return address. Just my name written in neat. Deliberate PENMANSHIP. Inside was a single sheet of thick ivory paper. No greeting, no signature, just, do not try to find me. You already did. I dropped the letter. Who was this man? And why did this feel less like a favor and more like I had opened a door I shouldn't have? I went to Mariah's place that night. She greeted me in her usual fuzzy slippers and satin bonnet like. I hadn't just spent 48 hours spiraling. You have to tell me, I said before, even stepping inside. She raised an eyebrow, sipping from a mismatched mug. Tell you what, who he was, where you found him, why he said he wasn't a friend of yours. Mariah held up her hand. I didn't send him. That stopped me cold. What? I didn't send him, she repeated. I got caught up with Jamal and forgot to text the last update. I figured you'd kill me later, but when I saw him at the party, I assumed you'd worked it out on your own. Hired someone last minute or something. My stomach dropped. No, I whispered. I thought we stared at each other for a moment. 2 women caught in a story neither of us had authored. Then Mariah leaned against the kitchen counter and said the words I'd been dreading. So, who the hell was he? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the only answer I had was Elias, and that name wasn't real either. Asterisk. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed fully clothed, the zipper of my dress still pressed uncomfortably against my ribcage, one heel discarded on the floor, the other still dangling from my toes. The cheap champagne had long worn off, but the high, that tight, giddy, terrified adrenaline was still ricocheting through my chest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Elias, or whatever his real name was, the way he'd said it, because you asked for Elias, and I needed someone to believe I could be someone else. It played on repeat, like a riddle I didn't know how to solve, like I'd spoken a wish aloud. And the universe had conjured up a man molded from secrets and moonlight. I kept trying to rewind the night in my head, reconstruct it make sense. He wasn't just a friend doing someone a favor. That much was obvious. He hadn't needed direction, hadn't asked questions. He'd stepped into the lie like it was a custom-tailored suit, fitting each social cue like he'd studied me in advance. And that voicesteady.com/confident like he'd always belonged beside me. Who was he? By 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely and texted Mariah.me. Who the hell was that Mariah? Good morning to you, to me. That wasn't someone you know, was it? Mariah, me, Maria. Okay. I honestly thought he was a last-minute guy from a casting app. You said someone hot who can pretend to be Elias for 3 hours max, and then he showed up and clearly had his own plan. Me? A casting app, Mariah, actors, freelancers. I submitted the request on a site I've used for shoots before, but he reached out to me personally, like within minutes. Said he'd do it free, no questions, just give him the time and address. He didn't even ask for your name. Just ... Said he already knew. Me? What? Mariah? I thought maybe you two had history or something. I stared at the screen. I didn't know anyone like him. Not in real life. But something about the way he looked at me. Like he did know me, and not just from that night. Like he'd carried the shape of my face in his mind for a while. I tried not to spiral. But my brain was a carnival now, spinning through every possibility. Was he a con artist? Some kind of weird stalker? An overly committed method actor? Or worse, had I spoken something into the world that answered back? You asked for Elias... He had said it like a vow, not a favor. As the sun began to rise, I finally crawled out of bed and pulled the curtains back. The party was over, the patio empty, but the fairy lights still glowed faintly, as if refusing to let the night die entirely. I had to find him, or at least try, not just because of the mystery, but because something inside me had shifted. When he walked in, I'd felt seen in a way that terrified me. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was the ghost of something I'd never believed I deserved. I opened my laptop and searched for the casting site Mariah had mentioned. I made an account, browsed the available actors. None of them looked like him. I typed Elias into the search bar. Nothing. Not even a profile that matched his height or hair. Then, just to test my own paranoia, I typed the name into Facebook. Then LinkedIn. Then Google. Still nothing. Not his face, not his voice, not his name. It was like he'd vanished, or never existed at all. The next day, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I was groggy from barely sleeping, wearing one sock and a t-shirt with peanut butter on the sleeves. But something in my chest said, pick it up. I did. Hello? Hey, it's me. His voice. Immediately, the hairs on my arms lifted. Elias, I whispered absurdly. A pause. I guess that's what you know me as, he said. Who are you really? Another pause? Can we talk in person? I hesitated. My apartment felt safe. My world felt structured, ordered. Meeting him again would mean stepping back into the chaos. But I said yes. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, the kind of place with jazz humming softly and dusty books stacked along the windowsill. He was already there when I arrived, seated at the back with a black coffee untouched in front of him. He stood when he saw me, and that same quiet presence wrapped around him like smoke. I didn't think I'd see you again, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. I wasn't sure if you'd want to, he replied. I didn't say anything, just studied him. He looked more human in the daylight. A faint scar under his chin, a slight shadow beneath his eyes. Still handsome, still poised but real. I owe you an explanation, he said. Yes, I agreed. He took a breath, folded his hands. My name's not Elias. My name is Ezra. I blinked. Ezra. He nodded. I used to be an actor. Small gigs mostly. Commercials, stage plays. But I quit a couple years ago. Started working in security consulting. Private clients, quiet jobs. I raised an eyebrow. So, why answer the casting call? He gave a soft, almost sad smile. I saw your name, your face, and I remembered you. My stomach twisted from where? He tapped his fingers against the coffee cup, a rhythm like a heartbeat. 3 years ago, we were on the same flight. Toronto to Atlanta. You sat 2 rows ahead of me. I remember you because you cried the whole time. Silently. I think no one else noticed. But I did. My breath caught. I'd just found out about my ex. I whispered, the cheating. He nodded. I remember thinking, she looks like she's holding the whole world inside and it's crumbling. And I wanted to say something, but I didn't. I stared at him. You remembered me from that. I didn't forget, he said. And when I saw your name again, when Mariah posted that casting requested, I knew I had to show up. I leaned back, stunned. That sounds insane, I said finally. I know, but you were perfect. Like, how did you know how to act like someone I made up? He smiled again, smaller this time. Because Elias wasn't just your invention, he said. He was every man I wanted to be. Calm, steady, kind. I wasn't playing a role, I just became who I wished I was. I didn't know what to say, so we sat in silence for a long minute. The cafe's jazz band crooning faintly in the background. Finally, he said, you don't have to see me again. I know this was strange. Maybe too much. I looked at him, and then I said, I think I want to know you. The real you. His eyes softened. Even if I'm not Elias. I smiled. Maybe I was never really looking for Elias. The weeks that followed were strange in the best way. We met again. And again, coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into dinners. Dinners turned into something that neither of us dared name just yet. Ezra was quieter than Elias. More hesitant. But he had the same instinct to reach for my hand when I got anxious. The same way of listening without interruption. And he always noticed the little things when I curled my fingers around the edge of my sleeve. Or when my voice dipped as I changed subjects. He paid attention. Without asking for anything in return. But even as things deepened between us, I couldn't shake the weight of how it all began. One night, we sat on my couch watching an old movie. He had his arm draped casually behind me, and I finally asked him the question I'd been holding on to. Why didn't you just introduce yourself that night as Ezra? He was quiet a long time before answering, because I didn't think Ezra would be enough. I turned to look at him. I didn't think I'd be the kind of man you needed. But Elias. Elias was brave, charming, already loved by your family. He walked in with confidence. I didn't have to earn it. It was already written. I pressed my hand over his. But you did earn it. And you still are. He looked at me then, not as Elias. Not as a role. But as himself. And I realized so was for the first time in a long time. I wasn't pretending either. The next morning, I woke up with champagne fuzz in my head and my phone blinking with new texts. Some were from Lena. Girl, Elias is fine. And so respectful. I love him for you. Others from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Asking when the wedding was, what he did for work, where I'd been hiding him. I didn't answer any of them. I just lay in bed, staring at the white ceiling above me like it might offer an answer. Who was that man? Why had he come? What did he mean by, I needed someone to believe I could be someone else? And how had he known exactly what to say to my family? How to move through my world like he belonged? There was only one person I could ask. Mariah. I called her, the phone shaking slightly in my hand. She picked up on the second ring, her voice still raspy with sleep. Please tell me who that was, I blurted. What, Elias, the guy who showed up? That wasn't someone you sent, was it? A pause, long enough to make me sit upright. I thought you hired him, she said slowly. You said you had it handled after I backed out. You told me not to worry. I went cold, double quotes. No. I begged you to find someone. You said no, and then he just showed up. Mariah was quiet. Then, okay, you're actually scaring me now. Who? Was he? I had no answer. My fingers trembled as I pulled back the curtains and stared out at the quiet street below. Bright sunlight, a dog walker, a jogger passing by with earbuds in. The world moved on like nothing strange had happened. But it had, because a man with no name and no real connection had slipped into my life. Like smoke, and every detail about him had been right. Every look, every word, every fabricated memory he helped bring to life. A knock at the door made me jump. I hung up without saying goodbye, moving slowly toward the front door of my apartment. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't told anyone where I was going after the party. I hadn't even posted stories. Another knock. I looked through the PEEPHOLE. One. My heart thud. DED. I opened the door cautiously and found a small envelope on the welcome mat, cream-colored, no name. Inside was a note, written in careful serif handwriting. You needed him. I became him. You're not the only one running from something. That was all. No signature, no explanation. Just that. I shut the door and pressed my back against it, trying to breathe through the rising panic. The note felt warm, like it had just been written. Like he'd stood there, maybe only moments ago, deciding whether to knock or just leave the message behind. What did he mean by running from something? I tried to shake it off. I tried to go about my weekend like everything was normal. Groceries, laundry, a trip to the farmer's market where I ran into my old roommate, Talia, who asked about that tall, silent man you brought to Lena's party. But even with the sunlight and fresh basil in my tote, I felt like something was sitting behind me, just out of sight. A presence like Elias hadn't just visited my life, he'd cracked something open inside it. I didn't sleep well that night. At 3:47 a.m., I found myself scrolling back through texts, photos, anything that might explain what had happened. And then I remembered something. The photo. One I had taken right before he left. Just a quick snap on the patio, where he had his arm around me and that unreadable look in his eyes. I opened it, zooming in on his face. not for his features, but for the reflection in his pupils. My hand trembled as I held the phone closer. Barely was the faint outline of someone standing in the background, someone wearing a hoodie, holding what looked like another phone. I didn't remember anyone standing there, and I'd been so wrapped up in Elias that I hadn't looked twice. But it meant something. A witness, or worse, a collaborator. I cropped the photo and sent it to Mariah.me. Do you see the person behind us? I swear no one was standing there when I took this. Mariah, wait, what? That looks like the guy from the college protest 3 years ago, the one who vanished after the photos leaked. Do you remember? I didn't. At least, not at first. But then the memories came rushing in. There had been a quiet scandal at campus. A photojournalism student took photos of an activist rally, tear gas, the whole thing. And one of the guys in the photo had been identified, then fired from a federal internship. No one had seen him after that. He'd disappeared. I pulled up the old news stories, scanned them, and there, grainy but familiar, was a man in a dark hoodie, hands clenched, eyes shadowed, mouth pressed into a thin, resolute line. It was him. It was Elias. But why? Why come back now? Why me? Unless I wasn't the only one who'd made someone up to survive. Maybe he'd done it first. I stared at the photo again. Not the one from the protest, but the one from Lena's party. I looked at his posture, his smile, the way he held my waist, like we'd practiced this 100 times. And I realized something strange. It wasn't just acting. He was living in that moment like it meant something, like he needed it to be. True? 2 days passed. Then 3, then a week. No new notes. No messages. No stranger waiting outside my door. Just silence. I began to feel like I had hallucinated the whole thing, until a new envelope arrived. No knock this time. It had been slipped under my apartment door while I was cooking pasta. This one was different. Heavier. Inside was a single Polaroid. Me and Elias at the party, not the one I took, but a different angle. A candid. I was laughing, head tilted back, and he was watching me with an intensity that made my stomach flip. On the back, written in the same careful hand, I didn't know I could feel real again. It was too much. I had to find him. I asked Mariah to help me track down anyone from the photojournalism club. She reached out to a friend of a friend who remembered him. They had a first name, Jaden. No last name, just Jaden. I took that and dug through every archive I could access. Message boards, student forums, old rally flyers. Finally, I hit something. A digital zine from senior year titled Echoes of Truth. Jaden Ellis. There was a short article under his name about identity and masks and the ways we hide behind the versions of ourselves people find easiest to believe. The writing was sharp, vulnerable. It felt familiar, almost like he'd written it for someone like me. I found an old email linked to the publication and sent a message on impulse. Subject: You weren't imaginary. Body: I don't know if you'll read this. I don't even know if this still belongs to you. But you became a lie I told Dan somehow turned it into the safest moment of my year. I don't want to ask why. I just want to know who you are when no one's watching. I hit send. Then I waited, and almost gave up, until 3 days later, I got a reply. Subject: Only when you asked. Body: The day of the party, I was sitting on the train trying to remember the last time I felt like someone wanted me around. Then your friend Mariah posted a story asking for someone trustworthy and invisible to help a friend in need. I knew it was about more than pretending. You didn't summon a lie, you invited someone back into the world. I'm in the city, still figuring out who I want to be. If you want to meet again, this time without the scripts, I'll be at the park across from St. James at 4 p.m. tomorrow. No champagne, no audience, just us. The next day I stood under the shade of a willow tree, heart thudding, fingers curled around the strap of my purse. He was there, sitting on the bench. No suit, just jeans, a hoodie, and a paperback book open on his knee. He looked up as I approached, smiled softly. Hi, he said. Hi, I echoed. I sat beside him, and for the first time there were no expectations. No roles, no pretending. Just two people, once erased by their own fictions, learning how to breathe again in the truth. The house was quiet the next morning, too quiet. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan as it turned in slow, hypnotic circles. My phone rested on the nightstand beside me, screen still blank. Not a single message from Mariah. No, are you okay? No, what the hell happened? No answers. I scrolled up through our text history anyway. just to prove to myself that this had actually happened, that someone had come in my place, worn Elias like a mask, and vanished. The last message from her still read, "He's almost there." That was it. The rest of the weekend passed like a fog. My parents left on Sunday, my mom slipping me a folded envelope full of old wedding magazines and prayer cards with verses about patience and timing. She kissed my cheek, said she was so happy Elias made it and that she hoped he'd be at Christmas. I smiled, nodded, lied again. By Monday, I was back at work staring into a Zoom meeting while my thoughts ran like background noise. I couldn't focus, couldn't stop thinking about him, about that man who had known just how to play the part. His voice, his timing, the way he said, "Because you asked for Elias." I wanted to be furious, I wanted to be terrified, but the truth, I was intrigued. Who helps a stranger like that? Who walks into someone's life just to make a life feel real for one night? Maybe someone lonelier than me. Tuesday night, I finally broke. I called Mariah. Straight to voicemail. Again and again. On the fourth try, she picked up. Her voice was low, tight. Hey, I said, too loud. "Mariah, what was that? Who was that guy?" Silence. Then, "I thought you knew." "Knew? What?" Another pause. Then her voice dropped a register, quiet, almost scared. "He called me, said he saw one of your old tweets, something about wishing you could disappear into a new life. Said his name was Elias. Said he could help. I thought you set it up." I stood, heart pounding. "Mariah, I didn't." More silence. Then she said something I will never forget. "He wasn't someone I hired. He found me." A chill crawled across my arms. Double quotes. "Mariah. Where is he now?" She exhaled. "I don't know. He said he only shows up when someone lies loudly enough." I almost dropped the phone, because I knew exactly what she meant, and I knew now that Elias wasn't a man. He was a consequence.